Here's the uncomfortable truth. You're probably not failing because your strategy is wrong. You're failing because you're not doing nearly enough of what already works. Most entrepreneurs spend years tweaking, optimizing, and pivoting, when the real answer is staring them in the face. Do more. Not 10% more, not twice as much. Radically, uncomfortably, almost unreasonably more. This is the single highest risk-adjusted return move you can make in business. And by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why. The data backs this up in ways most people never see. And once you understand the mechanics, you can't unsee it. Think about the last time something finally worked in your business. A marketing channel that clicked, a sales script that converted, an offer people actually wanted. How many failed experiments did it take to get there? 5, 10, 20? Now here's the critical question. When you finally found that winner, what did you do next? If you're like most entrepreneurs, you immediately started looking for the next new thing. But here's what the data reveals. When you've got something that works, doubling down produces far more predictable results than rolling the dice on something unproven. Companies that focus on scaling proven channels generate substantially higher returns than those constantly chasing optimization. The highest performers don't have better ideas. They execute relentlessly on what's already working. Think about it. You spent months finding one thing that converts, and now you're willing to abandon it for an untested theory? That's not strategy. That's self-sabotage disguised as innovation. There's a seductive myth in entrepreneurship. If you could just get more efficient, squeeze better returns from less input, everything would click. This is the optimizer's mindset, and it's quietly killing your growth potential. Research shows that optimizers ask, how do I get the most from the least? While maximizers ask, how do I get the absolute most, period? Here's the difference that matters. In competitive markets, first place and second place might be separated by tiny margins, 1/10 of a second, a 2% conversion improvement, one more sales call per day. But the rewards aren't separated by tiny margins. They're separated by everything. The gold medalist gets endorsements, fame, and opportunities, while the silver medalist fades into obscurity. Nobody remembers who came in second. Diminishing returns are still returns, and when you're fighting for first place, you can't afford to leave any on the table. The optimizer celebrates getting 10% more from their effort, while the maximizer crushes them with 300% more output. Efficiency loses to volume every single time when the game is winner takes all. Every time you change something in your business, you pay a hidden tax that nobody warns you about. Teams need retraining, systems need adjustment, and performance typically drops 20% immediately, while you figure out if the change even works. Then 3 things can happen. It doesn't work and you stay down, it works worse and you drop further, or it works better and eventually you climb back to maybe 5% above where you started. Do the math. A guaranteed 20% drop for a possible 5% gain is a terrible bet. Yet entrepreneurs make this bet constantly, convinced that tweaking their way to perfection is the path forward. They change their landing page, their sales process, their onboarding, anything to avoid the real work of scaling what already functions. The magic happens through repetition, not revision. When you do the same thing repeatedly, you develop depth of skill, spot nuances, and naturally optimize through experience without the performance penalty. Your team gets faster, smoother, more intuitive with the process. Here's the kicker. If you change nothing, most businesses naturally improve 2 to 3% monthly just from people getting better at their jobs. That's free growth you throw away every time you hit the reset button. Something fascinating happens when you commit to massive volume. It forces you to get better in ways optimization never could. When you're committed to making 100 sales calls daily, no matter what, you start obsessing over pickup rates, optimal calling windows, and message testing. When you're producing 25 pieces of content daily, you develop systems, identify patterns, and build muscle memory that occasional creators never develop. High-volume content creators don't just produce more, they establish topical authority, dominate search rankings, and create compounding advantages through consistent presence. Companies publishing 100+ pieces yearly generate double the traffic of those producing under 50. That's not a small edge. That's total market domination. The volume itself becomes your competitive advantage because most people simply won't do it. They'll try for a week, maybe two, then retreat to their comfort zone claiming quality over quantity. And here's the beautiful part. The pain of high volume naturally drives efficiency improvements without the performance drop of forced optimization. When every ad matters because you're running thousands, you find the winners faster. When you're making 100 calls daily, you discover the perfect pitch naturally through iteration, not theory. When you look at someone ahead of you, you see their public output, their posts, their ads, their visible activity. Most people think, I need to match that, and call it ambition. But here's what you're missing. You're only seeing a fraction of what they're actually doing. For every public post, there are strategy meetings, failed experiments, team trainings, and systems you never see. The iceberg principle applies to success. 90% of the work happens below the surface. So when you think you need to do 3 times their visible volume to catch up, you're still behind. The real competitors aren't doing 3 times what you see. They're doing 10 times or 30 times when you factor in all the invisible work. Successful brands that dominate their markets don't publish occasionally. They create relentlessly, building content moats that competitors can't penetrate. If you want to leave no doubt, if you want to guarantee you win, you can't just match, you need to overwhelm. You need to do so much volume that even if you're only seeing 10% of their work, you're still outworking them. Here's where it gets practical. What would it take to do 100 times more? Not whether you should, but what resources would be required. To go from 20 ads monthly to 2,000 before a launch doesn't just happen. It requires 15 editors instead of 5. To host 260 events in 365 days means building travel systems, presentation frameworks, and recovery protocols. To scale ad spend from $100 daily to $1,000 demands more creative testing, broader platform presence, and systematic winner identification. The question isn't can I, because the answer is always yes. It's is it worth it? And when the math shows that hiring 10 additional editors costs dramatically less than the revenue from a successful launch, the answer becomes obvious. Most entrepreneurs wildly underestimate both what's required and what they're capable of achieving. They think big means 2 times or 3 times, when real scale means 10 times or 100 times. Your capacity is always higher than what's necessary, but you won't discover it by thinking, only by doing. The resources exist, the systems are buildable, and the only real constraint is your willingness to operate at a level that feels unreasonable. The fundamental question every entrepreneur must answer isn't what should I change, or how can I optimize? It's why can't I do more? Most people reach a point and declare, there's no way I can do more. And that's precisely where the big breakthroughs in volume occur. Because here's the secret. If you knew beyond doubt that doing 100 times your current volume would guarantee hitting your goals, you'd find a way. The resources would appear, the systems would develop, and the obstacles would dissolve. The only real question is whether you believe exceptional results require exceptional effort, and whether you're willing to live an exceptional life to get them. Oil and water don't mix, and you cannot make yourself exceptional while living a normal life. Average people will call you obsessed, unbalanced, unhealthy, and they're right, but that's the point. So ask yourself right now, what's actually stopping you from doing radically more of what already works? Because the answer to that question is the only thing standing between you and everything you want.